When's the last time you watched a professional women's sport? Not just college, but elite pro women. On the other hand, what about a professional men's sport? In today's world of sports, people take men more serious than women. But does this mean that a man should be still paid more than a woman? The average NBA player earns over $3.5 million a year, while a WNBA player only earns $130,000. As a female athlete playing high school sports, looking at these rules makes me question is furthering my career after high school even worth it? Some may not think that this rule is important, but what about your daughter who looks up to the amazing female athlete only to find out that men can make over millions more than her? Today, I will speak with you on why women in sports put in the same amount of effort as men, but don't get the pay they deserve. I will speak with you on women's rights, women putting in the same or more amount of work, men getting higher revenue and more media attention, and overall, men versus women in sports. Women's pay in sports is a controversial topic that many see different. So let's start with women's rights. For many years, women have been fighting for fair rights against men. The 1848 Seneca Falls Women's Rights Convention kicked off the women's rights movement. Women just wanted a piece of what the world gives men. The first Olympic Games was held in 1896, only allowing men to compete. Women were finally allowed to participate in the second modern games in the 1900s. After the women's rights movements, you would think that things would become equal. But because of the unequal pay gap, it makes you question, when will everything be the same for women? According to Vanessa Laurent of the Family Online, not only is creating a fair future for women's sports important, but recognizing inequalities that currently exist and understanding how they came to be is essential for women entering and staying in the sports industry. These inequalities that she mentions could be the unequal pay and even just the way women are treated. Men and women put in the same amount of work to perform on such a high level. Many not knowing what it takes to become a pro athlete, from the games to practice to even the media. According to Lizelle Godecker of the Swaddle, she states, but you're also comparing apples and oranges, which is a bit silly. Women aren't competing against men, they're competing against women. She states this by saying, why does a woman have to be just as good as a man when women are competing against women? How would you feel if you were working the same job, just putting in the same amount of hours and effort, only to get paid net close to millions less? According to Richard Jarvin of WSN.com, he states, it wasn't long ago in the WNBA and the NBA games were quite different. The rules of the game weren't the same across the board, seemingly to increase the attractiveness of product rather than providing a consistent one through each avenue. He finishes this by saying, the NBA has 3.5 games a week with 4 quarters. The WNBA also has close to 3 games a week with 4 quarters, playing 12-minute. The NBA playing 12-minute quarters, and the WNBA playing 10. So, if they're putting in the same effort, the same sport, the same rules, and even the same concept, why should men be making more? Could gender be the actual cause of the pay gap, or could the world have a lot to do with this? According to the Zipper team of Zipper.com, female athletes get paid less in general because the professional sports league that female athletes are involved with, generate a lot less revenue than the professional sports league does. The NBA, the revenue consists of ticket sales, manufacturers, operations. So with the NBA playing 82 games and the WNBA only playing 40, that's a major difference in the revenue. The WNBA generates $60 million with only $12.3 million of those dollars given to the players, while the NBA generates $10 billion from revenue, while 53% of that is awarded to the players. Hopefully, the revenue for women's sports will pick up over the next few years. Now the good part, men versus women in sports. On average, there's a 10 to 12 performance gap between male and females. But the sex determine win share. A woman can put in the same amount of effort as a man and still not be good enough. In July of 2019, Fiona Kohlberger beat 200 men in the transcontinental race. She completed this race in 10 days, 2 hours, and 48 minutes, beating Ben Davis. The continental race was 2,500 miles, passing through 7 countries. Kohlberger states, I was targeting the women's podium, but I didn't think I could win the whole race. With the lack of confidence that Kohlberger had throughout this race, it goes to show that she was nervous about competing with over 200 men. This lack of confidence shows that women in sports should have a little more enthusiasm. With this info today shows women can put in the same amount of effort, but it doesn't pay off like a man. Hopefully after this speech, I gave you valid reasons as to why women in sports put in the same effort as men, but not get the same benefits. Today I spoke with you on women's rights, women putting in the same amount of effort, men getting more media attention and revenue, and men versus women in sports all around. Now that you know my reasons, I urge you, the next time you decide to watch a game, maybe cut on the women's sports and think about a woman. Or maybe even try to catch a game one day. Thanks.
I had 7 minutes.